Okay, here I am again. Today I want to do the second half of the gender stereotypes lecture. And when I do the second half, what I really want to focus on is this distinction we've been doing between biological sex and gender identity, because this is really what we're focused in on here. Why is it appropriate for girls to wear pink and boys to wear blue? It's not, and so this concept sometimes has nothing to do with this concept right here. When I talk about that, remember the genderbread person? Gender identity is how you think of yourself with your head. It's like, am I a boy or a girl or both or neither? Whereas biological sex is what parts do you have? And those two things sometimes are the same, cisgendered, and sometimes they're different. Whereas gender expression is a whole nother category we've been talking about, where you could wear a dress but consider yourself male and have male parts. And so I'm really going to focus on these two right here for a second. So I got this other one, maybe it's a little bit better than the one I do, but see, here's expression, what do you wear? Here's sex, what parts do you have? Who you're attracted to, and identity, how you think of yourself. And we've been focusing a lot on that brain part, how you think of yourself. Okay, so here's my little thing, male or female, or you could be in the middle. If you were right in the middle, it'd be like intersexed or something. But male or female, that's your biological sex, is the y-axis. Okay, the x-axis, masculine or feminine, that's how you express yourself, could be gender expression, or how you feel about yourself, which is gender identity. So these categories right here is what I consider cisgendered. I should have put this word on here, but here's how it's spelled, cisgender. Most people in this class, you included, are cisgendered. What does that mean? You're a male and you kind of act masculine, you consider yourself a male. I mean, that's it, you know what I mean? Or you're a female, you kind of act feminine, you consider yourself a female because you have female parts. So transgendered is these different categories, maybe right over here where you're incongruent. And see, I'm not talking about transsexual where you want to change sexes. Transgender, I got too many trans going on right there, is where you're incongruent. You're a female right here who acts masculine, butch, or you're a man who acts feminine over here. So I think I have it on the next overhead right here, butch and sissy. And so we talked a lot about, distinctions between people that are butch and sissy, but these people are transgender by definition. If you're a girl and you act butch, or a boy and you act girly, that's like you're not acting according to the quote unquote right category, and so you're transgender. Doesn't mean you want to change sexes, transsexual, but this category is what I'm really focusing in on. And people go, okay, what's the big deal? It's like, well, think about hate crimes against gay people. Well, transgender people even get it worse. I mean, here we go. If you want to look at hate crimes in the United States, boy, that makes me sad about Jewish people right here. But in 2014, it still makes me sad, anti-Semitic hate crimes, but LGBT #1. So they always lag about 5 or 6 years behind. So like, hate crimes are growing. Everybody goes, oh, everybody's like accepting and more accepting of gay people. And no, they're not. And look, fewer hate crimes and homophobia crimes are being solved by the police. They don't care. That's why I'm so fucking fired up about this shit. Okay, so anyway, I better get off my soapbox before I go crazy. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Okay, this might be one of my favorite things of all time, androgyny. I mean, ever since I was a young person, especially coming into my sexuality, androgyny fascinated me. So andro, man, GYN, woman, you put the two things together. You have both masculine and feminine traits kind of in equal parts. All of us, I argue, are androgynous, but maybe we're lopsided towards the male end or lopsided towards the female end. Now, when I talk about androgyny, I love physical androgyny, where people look like kind of a boy and a girl at the same time, and that's what I'm fixing to show you. But really, when I'm talking about androgyny, it's behavioral. Like you can't manhandle everything, even if you're a dude. It's like you need to have a deft hand when you're fixing something. You better be a gentle about fixing certain parts on your car or electronic equipment. You can't just go in there with a sledgehammer all the time. And the same thing with the girls. You don't have to be butch, but necessarily be assertive and be, I don't know, entrepreneurial, all these different kinds of things. And that's your behavior, not necessarily the way you look. Okay, so I'm gonna focus more on the way you look because that's what I like. I call it gender benders. This is one of my favorite models. God, I've got to go out and find his name. I think he's beautiful. He's so gorgeous, but he's right in between. He's right on that line between girl and boy. That's why I like him so much. I love people that are androgynous because growing up, especially when I was really young, I was a lot more androgynous, and then people gave me shit because, like, oh, you're a fag because you kind of are girly. And it's like, whatever, I love androgynous people. Marlene Dietrich back in the 30s, like she was already dressing like a man way before the people we have now that are pushing the limit. I mean, that was a no-no. And so she was smoking, carrying on, acting like a man. I love it. So she was pushing that masculine, that butch, kind of index. So I don't know. Here he is. I'm in love with Prince. I've always been in love with Prince. He's so gorgeous. It sucks that he died. I just love him. I mean, who's sexier than this person? There's nobody in the world, but most men don't do their hands like that. I do. Or they don't wear these kind of shirts right here. If I had the body, I would do it. I'm not kidding either. Because he pushes that line and he doesn't care that he's feminine and having sex with girls. Does this make sense? People don't understand me, but Prince made me understand myself. It's so awesome. Look at his symbol right here. When he changed his name to this symbol, what does that mean? It's just the male and the female symbol. If you glue them together, I am androgyny. This is the symbol for androgyny. He changed his name to androgyny. So, who are the other androgynous people? You probably don't know Katie Lang, but I love her. She's awesome. The album is called Drag. Annie Lennox back in the 80s. David Bowie still. God, I love David Bowie. He made me know that it was okay to be girly. It was okay to be girly. I mean, look at David Bowie right here. The man who sold the world. He's wearing a dress on an album. I mean, that's not the kind of pants and outfit that most manly men wear. This might be the sexiest picture of all time, but look at him way back in the day wearing dresses and carrying purses. Back in the 60s, 70s, I guess it would be 70s. Okay, so Boy George. I remember my dad found my Boy George album. I thought I was going to get my ass beat. He's like, what's this? You know what I mean? It's like I love Boy George. Again, he said it was okay to be you. I'm a big Marilyn Manson freak. I totally adore Marilyn Manson, but you might not like him as much as Tim does. Let's see who else. Oh, Jaye Davidson. He's so beautiful. Look at him in this picture right here. He was in The Crying Game and also Stargate. I mean, right here, he's right on that line. Is that a boy or a girl? And you know what Tim says? I don't care. He's hot. She's hot. Whatever. Let me see who else I have on here. Tilda Swinton. I just love that she can pull that masculine look off. When I first saw her in Constantine at this movie, also on Michael Clayton, this is from Michael Clayton, I think. I couldn't tell, is that a boy? Maybe not. Because angels might be genderless. Same thing about God. Does God really have a penis? I don't want to go there right now, but whatever. Okay, Johnny Weir. I mean, do most men wear high heels and act like this, like in spandex? I don't think they do. I love Johnny Weir. He's an ice skater and he wears ridiculous girly outfits with big feathers and tails and whatever. I'm just glad that he can express his femininity, even though other people hate that. Scarlett Johansson's the fucking shit. She's the fucking shit as an actress. I love her. I could just go off on her, but this picture right here, nothing's hotter than that right there. She's pulling off that masculine look, almost like the modern version of Marlene Dietrich. I think have two more. Here's Young Thug. I mentioned him before. He wears dresses and like little halter tops, and this is a Gucci dress with this big puffy thing he's wearing right here on his neck. And this is another guy that I don't know if it's a guy. I can't use my pronoun use right. Rain Dove. I think I don't know if he's a trans man or a trans girl. God, dang it, this sucks. Whatever, Rain Dove. Go look this person, because I don't want to get the trans wrong, up. This is why I'm confused, because Rain has boobs, but Rain acts like a dude a lot of times, but it's right in between, so we'll wear outfits that kind of look like a guy, but a girl. You can see these right here. Oh my God, it's awesome. Other people is disturbing too. I don't know. For some reason, Tim likes it. You know what I mean? I think it's awesome because it's right there in the middle, and it fucks with people's idea of gender and these folders, and it makes things gender queer or gender fluid. He would be, she would be gender fluid. He, she. Okay, I hope that section was good for you. It was really good for me. Okay, once again, I wish we were in class for this section. It's about androgyny and spiritual status, because a lot of times people see androgynous people as like, okay, you're a weirdo or a freak. Why don't you just be a boy or a girl? But back in the day, people who were androgynous were seen as special. They held special status as far as spirituality goes. Well, what does all that mean? Well, this is Akhenaten, and Akhenaten was an Egyptian pharaoh, but supposedly he might have had Klinefelters. Remember we talked about the men who developed breasts and small penises? But he was kind of feminine and masculine, truly androgynous, a man and a woman, kind of, and so he was seen to derive special powers from that. Same thing, I'm into Hinduism a lot. I love Hinduism. And Lord Krishna, I mean, that's a girl, but it's supposed to be a boy, especially in Hinduism. There's a lot of duality between the genders. It's just not binary. You have to be one or the other. Okay, so the people I want to talk about reside right here in Arizona in the Southwest. They're called berdaches. Actually, they're all over the world, but within indigenous culture, what is a berdache? Well, it's usually a man, sometimes women, but usually a man that lives as a woman. He dresses like a woman, does female activities, adopts all the gender roles of a woman, etc. And so you would think, oh, okay, that demotes your status. It promotes your status. It's a weird idea because it seems like you're demoting by being more feminine. I argued this before. So a berdache is also known as a two-spirit. They believe that both a man and a woman inhabit their body. See, this is what I believe about myself, that there's both a girl and a boy in my body. They're both make up Tim, but those two things live in my body. Now, I don't use he and she as pronouns and stuff like that, but I do believe I'm a two-spirit. And I don't know if you can understand two spirits, but here they are. I mean, look how beautiful these pictures are. I mean, this person's rocking it. I don't want to say dude, but it is a guy that's living as a girl, but pronoun use, Tim. Come on, dude. You know what I mean? Me, I'm talking about. And so, besides those pictures, I have this picture. This one is so powerful right here. But I don't know. It seems like within certain societies, especially when the white people came through, they saw these people and said, we got to get rid of those folks. They're not powerful. They're the example of people we don't want from a Judeo-Christian perspective. Be a man, be a woman, heteronormative. You remember me talking about this, right? Okay, so Hijras are another category, and they do live in India. And in India, these men live as women, and they also castrate themselves. A lot of times they have other problems that are going on, down there, but they could be intersex, etc. I'm fixing to show a movie about it that will explain more detail, but they live as a woman, and they're known as a third sex. A third sex. There's males, females, and hijras. And these hijras are supposedly granted special magical powers to heal babies and heal the sick and bless weddings and all these other kind of stuff. So even though people kind of freak out on them, they go to the same people because they're mystical and kind of mysterious because they combine both the male and female traits. And okay, so enough of me talking about the whole thing. I'm fixing to show the movie here on the next slide. Hey guys, here I am. I know you were supposed to see a video, but they blocked it on YouTube, so I had to take it off because of copyright issues. So please disregard any comments I make on the next slide about the hydras. You don't really have to know it for the test, but they are very interesting if you want to go on the web and look them up on your own. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that video. I really like showing that video about the third gender because it's accepted, but also they have this special spiritual status. Okay, enough about that. I'm going to talk about 3 different scales. When I say scales, this is what I mean. Sometimes my country accent that have been used to measure your masculinity and femininity. So for the test, just know these 3 scales. If we were in class, I would give you one of them, but later on I'll discuss a link where you can go and take one of them. Okay, so the first one is called AIAS. You don't have to remember all this bullshit right here, but that's what it stands for. And really, I don't want you to know a whole lot about the AIAS. It was an old school test. You had to fill out 456 items. I don't want to take a test that has 456 items. And masculinity was on one end and femininity was on the other. Most scales are kind of like that. You know, you go way masculine, way feminine, kind of in the middle would be androgynous. So that was the original conception. That's why I show this. Now, a lot of people, and I still argue this, that all these scales are doing is just measuring stereotypes. If it says that, you know, you're aggressive and therefore you're male, well, that's a stereotype. So there's been a lot of discussion in the literature about, are we actually measuring masculinity or femininity, or measuring the stereotypes? Okay, so that's enough about the AIAS. And the next one is the MMPI. That's not really the scale. MMPI is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. It was used before the DSM-5 to measure personality, all kinds of different personality disorders, because I don't know if you know this, but homosexuality, I think I talked about this earlier, used to be a disorder. So another scale they had within that was I love this, the MF scale. It reminds me of Mary Frances. I sit by at Mass a lot. And on the first day I met Mary Frances, it's like, what's your name? She goes, Mary Frances. I used to go by MF until that became a bad thing. Okay, so enough about that. But MF stands for masculinity, femininity scale. But here's the kicker. I just can't believe this part. How did they measure masculinity? 54 male soldiers. Okay, if you're in statistics, that might be okay. How do they measure femininity? They didn't even bring girls in. They just took in 13 gay men and go, okay, if you're gay, you're a girl, so we'll just like measure femininity that way. And this was used in psychology as the standard for masculinity versus femininity. By the way, it doesn't predict gay that but well either. Let me take you to Pride and introduce you some big old butch boys that are gay. So butchness, feminist, there was problems early on with measuring these kinds of things. Well, guess what? A certain lady knew about these problems, and in the 1970s, given all the ERA and the women's revolution, I wish we have a new women's revolution, but she started saying, look, this whole thing where you got femininity down here and masculinity over here, I don't know if my little thing is working. That's not right. So Sandra Bem in the 1970s, you should look up some of her research. She's just groundbreaking. She says you can have both or neither or a little bit of both or be lopsided. So this is my androgyny thing. You know what I mean? This is why I love Sandra Bem, because she makes sense to me. It's like, just because I have a lot of girly energy about, like, I like to do makeup and arrange flowers, my shit will like take you up to the top of a mountain and I'll take the butchest motherfucker up there. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, let's get it on. It's like, so I can go with both things, and this is why I call myself a two-spirit. Maybe not 2 people live in my body, but I have these 2 spirits. So on her scale, There's, I think 60 items. If you answered, maybe it's, yeah, I don't know, whatever. I think an 80 is in the middle and a 140 is at the top. I'd have to double check that, but 80 is like what the average score will be. And so if you're above 80 on both scales, then you're going to have a significant amount of masculinity and femininity. If you're right around 80 and then below that, would be like you have neither kind of. So what does all this mean? The BSRI is the name of the test. If you go to Canvas, I have a link on Canvas, but it's an abbreviated, I can't even spell right over here. It's an abbreviated scale. I won't try to spell Canvas. And you can take it in 5 minutes and it'll give you a score, between whatever. It's not 0, it's between 20, because there's 20 items that are female, 20 items that are, yeah, between 20 and 140, and 80 is right dead in the middle. Okay, and so on both scales, it'll say on the male, on the female, and are you this way? This is what it should show you. It might show you both scores, feminine and masculine. If you were in class, I would just hand it out and give it to you. But it definitely will show you, are you undifferentiated, low on both? If you're low on both, it's kind of like, you're kind of androgynous in a weird way, where it's like, I can't tell if you're a man or a woman, but it's not like Prince in a good way. You know what I mean? That would be high on both, androgynous. Real high femininity and real high masculinity. These are my favorite people. Most people are pretty much cisgendered. What does that mean? Well, they're XY, they're male, and they look like a dude. You know what I mean? And they act and they have these masculine characteristics, and the same thing for feminine. And so a lot of you will fall into this category with your scores. If you find yourself, you don't have to be uber typical guy or girl, but if you're typical. But if you're atypical, you might be down in this category. Not too many people are going to fall in here, but I'll bet you a lot of you fall into androgynous and you don't look androgynous. Why? Because if you look at it this way, it's like, well, maybe you need to be able to act as a leader, but sometimes be gentle. You see what I mean? These are the traits that she used. You'll see different traits, I think, on the test that I gave you. But sometimes girls need to be self-reliant, or maybe boys need to be compassionate. So you should have a mixing. And that's what I'm talking about with androgyny. You don't have to go all girly like Tim, but you should have this, especially if you're going to be something called a parent. Does this make sense? Because as a parent, you need to be, like, for instance, sensitive to the needs of others. Okay, so Riccardelli, I don't know if I said that right, and Williams in 1995 came up with this thing where they said both masculinity and femininity can be good and bad. I don't expect you to remember this for the test, but it's hugely important. If you look at it this way, masculinity is good when you're strong and confident and firm and forceful and just kind of like you don't have a lot of worries. It's bad when you start being a dick. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, we kind of talked about this a little bit before in a way. Femininity can be good when you're patient and sensitive or appreciative and you take care, caretaking. But it's really bad when you get over into here. You know what that reminds me of is Oedipus and Antigone. I'm going to be like the uber crazy tyrant that takes advantage of everybody. Or I'm going to be the doormat like Antigone and just take it. But the thing about it is, I really don't need to like be negative, right? I should be positive as a guy or a girl. But I'm going to argue that you're a two-spirit. Everyone is androgynous. And being a two-spirit is like a berdache, you know what I mean? And so, as a human being on planet Earth, I think you should be strong and patient, firm and responsible, carefree, but also devoted and sensitive. All these different things, a combination of all these things, and that's the androgyny or the berdache that I'm talking about. I hope you can dig on that part. Okay, I'm almost done, but here's one of my favorite people. If we were in my religion class, I'd go off on LSD right now, and Ram Dass and Timothy Leary and a bunch of other people. But Ram Dass, he changed his name from Richard Alpert to Ram Dass, which means servant of God. I love this. That's what you're supposed to be, servant of God, Ram Dass. This is what he says about androgyny. The deeper your spiritual practice, the more you are aware that everyone is androgynous. I'm not saying you're gay or bisexual or genderqueer or whatever else, but you better be strong and gentle. at certain times, right? With how you handle people, situations, and things. And so hopefully this section made sense to you. I'm fixing to move on to the very last section and we'll be done for the day. Okay, here we are. I'm just barely hanging in there. I hope you're still with me. But on this last section, what I wanted to talk about is cultural differences. And what does that mean? Well, we've been talking about how women, if I can get the symbols all right, are different than men this whole time. But really, that's over here in America, how we're different. A lot of the studies I've been presenting, a lot of the research has been done in America. So that's ethnocentric. And if you remember from Margaret Mead, it's like, oh yeah, women are passive and men are aggressive. Well, she didn't find that in every tribe right here, you know. She didn't find it either right here. So she found that those whatever gender roles and also stereotypes can be quite malleable or moldable, right? Is what that word means. And so, if you think about that, think about all the different kinds of people that we have living around the world or even in America. African Americans versus Arab Americans, Latino Americans, Anglo Americans, whatever. You know, what are the standards? Well, maybe we're talking about this right here. Are they exaggerated in this culture? This is why I wish we were in class because then I could pick on certain people. You know, are the standards the same for white people and black people as far as men and women are concerned? I don't think they are. I really don't. Are they exaggerated over here? I think they are. In Native American cultures, there's some really passive dudes. I'm not kidding. It's not a bad thing, but it's just like that's the thing, you know what I mean? And so there's all kinds of supposedly there's all kinds of different gender roles. I've already mentioned the berdache, but other ones as well. And so, but then, you know, Arab culture, you know, what are the division of labor like? Is it even more, you know, strict? Is it rigid? What are these things like? Okay, so that's enough for today. I wish we were in class, but I will see you next time.